Now.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bishop from Animal Healthcare, and today we're going to talk about the importance of exercise with your dog. My associate here, Judy, is going to ask me some questions in reference to this, and with that, I hand it over to you, Judy.
All right, great. So, Dr. Bishop, how much exercise does my dog need?
Well, that's a question that has to be answered with consideration of the age of the pet, how overweight or underweight the pet is. Are there any underlying musculoskeletal problems associated with the pet? Certainly, if it's a Labrador and he's young, you better exercise him, or you got a lot of trouble on your hands. If it's an older geriatric patient, then exercise is certainly extremely important to keep muscle tone up, which keeps the joints, really tight, and keeps things moving and going and keeps muscle strength there. So how much exercise depends on the individual. If you've got a dog that's getting into everything and driving you crazy all the time, then you just want to find a big hill and get a ball and throw it and have him run up the hill and throw it down. Just keep going. Don't overheat him, don't overrun him, or don't overwork him, but you certainly want to wear that energy out of him, and it's really, really beneficial.
Okay. And then how does exercise impact the health and well-being of my dog?
Well, it's an activity that's usually engaged in with the owner, so the relationship between the owner and the dog becomes a lot tighter. The dog knows that they have the owner's attention. If they're throwing the ball, or if they're doing a frisbee thing, or if they're just out on a walk, they're there together, and so that definitely is going to help out. And can you give me the question one more time again?
Yeah, so we're looking for how exercise impacts the health and well-being of my dog.
Okay, so I've covered more of the well-being side of it. From a health perspective, obviously weight control is incredibly important, and a lot of the patients that we see, a lot of our canine patients are actually overweight. How do we tell if they're overweight? Well, if we can't feel the ribs on the side of the chest just with light pressure, they're definitely overweight. So maintaining good weight and then maintaining good muscle tone and muscle mass is super important too. So those things are all very valuable. Cardiovascularly, we don't have to deal with heart attacks in dogs. Congestive heart failure is not necessarily a net result or an end result to inactivity, but activity is always beneficial.
Okay. And then how much is too much exercise?
Well, that's a situation where we've got to look at a number of factors. Again, the age and overall state of health of the dog that you're dealing with is important. There can be environmental factors that are very, very limiting depending on the breed of the dog. For example, if you have a bulldog and you take that dog out in 95-degree weather, you really better not exercise him very much, because he has anatomically not a big enough windpipe to keep himself cool. He will overheat and you will end up at the veterinarian. So, but if it's a cool day and it's a Labrador that's, a very much an active working dog, or an Australian Shepherd or a cattle dog or one of those sorts of dogs, certainly you can really work them quite hard. I think a lot of times you have to stop, because the dog will want to keep going, and their tongue's hanging out about 6 inches, that they're really pushing it to the limit. So, but yeah, you just have to judge by the patient. Little puppies actually, when they're 15, 18 weeks of age, can go quite a long ways. Little dogs like Yorkshire Terriers, for example, when they're very young, have an inability to store enough of a readily convertible carbohydrates, so we can exercise them too much and their blood sugars will fall too low. And when the blood sugar falls too low, they either collapse or seizure or both. So with little bitty dogs, we have to be careful about over exercising them too. I always tell the owners they're not Energizer bunnies. We don't put batteries in You really have to limit the activity on a little Yorkshire Terrier, for example, that comes in at, 15 ounces or something. Kind of feed him 4 or 5, 6 times a day, at least 4, and make sure that there's always something in his system, because we don't want to end up pushing his blood sugar too low.
Okay. And then what are some ways to exercise my dog outside?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I have a list here of things. I mean, agility, if you have the dog in agility training, that's something that's really good, or if they know about agility. If you feel a little bit adventurous and want to try to exercise your dog while you're riding your bike, I'd say go for it, but that could be catastrophic if they run in front of you or the lead gets tied up in the bike. But I know people do it. There are dog sports, frisbee and other things like that people play with them. Playing fetch is good. Hiding with them. Obedience training is probably a lower level of exercise, although some of it can be pretty intense. Running with the dog, again, is good if the dog's pretty good on a leash, but I don't think I would run with a dog that's all over and darting every different direction. Swimming dogs is good. After you swim a dog, though, be sure to get the water out of the ears, and make sure that you're not in an area where there's an undertow or a current that's going to carry the dog out to sea, so to speak. So be really careful about that. Having a life jacket on them might not be a bad idea, just in case, especially in our area here with Lake Michigan, if there's an undertow or something that would carry that dog out. So.
Okay. And then what about exercises for my dog inside?
Well, I think that, a laser pointer for some dogs is a wonderful tool. If you got a set of stairs and a laser pointer, you're set. You can really exercise them. Be careful to not over exercise them. I had a few clients whose dogs were trained to actually get on the treadmill and do a program, where it went faster, went slower, and so on and so forth. I would caution you about tying the dog to the treadmill. Make it possible for that dog to get off or get ejected off the backside of it. Because if he's tied to it and trips or falls, I mean, it could be catastrophic. So tug of war is something that some people look at it as an exercise activity, and certainly there's a lot of exertion there. I tend to discourage folks from doing tug of war in any situation, because it puts the dog on one side of an equation and the owner on another side of the equation. And dogs seem to work best in a military command sort of situation, where they look up to the owner and say, "Yes, sir," and not, "I'm bigger than you. No, I'm going to win," and grab on the tug of war thing. So I don't like tug of war, just simply because it creates a disobedient sort of situation. So when that owner now wants to medicate that dog or clean that dog's ears, open the mouth and take something out of the mouth, now it's a game instead of a sit, let me open your mouth, and it's simply done. The dog doesn't swallow it, isn't going off to the surgeon to get it removed. So tug of war, a lot of people do it. I don't personally suggest doing that. Agility sort of things can be done outside or inside. So again, that would be a good thing to do.
Okay. And then what are some health issues that can occur from a lack of exercise?
Well, I think the biggest thing is if we overeat and don't exercise enough, the calories are going to get stored as extra body tissue, and then that aggravates arthritis and can end up with some potential liver-related issues and other things like that. But lack of exercise coupled with overeating is a real problem. So if the eating levels are right and exercise is good, then we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. And then last question, what are some ways to motivate my dog to exercise?
Find out what they like to do. If they're intrigued by a laser pointer, certainly do it. If they like to fetch for you, then have them fetch. If they just like to go on a walk with you and sniff, have them do that. If you like dog parks and your dog gets along with other dogs and the dogs at the dog park are nice, send them to the dog park. There's doggy daycare too. They interact with other dogs. If they're not so socially interactive in a good way in a dog park or in a doggy daycare situation, then certainly don't do that. But interaction with other dogs, if there's another dog next door that your dog really likes and likes spending time with, maybe get that owner to walk with you with their dog, and then it's an activity that the dog really wants to do too. So if you have other questions, we're here at Animal Health Care. I'm Dr. Bishop. Our number is 630-305-7200. Please feel free to give us a call. Our website is vetnaperville.com, and thank you for listening today.